Hey everyone, Namaste and welcome to this evening's conversation with Yogacharya Dr. Ananda Balayogi Bhavanani. So those of you who are here listening in, please say hi in the comment section and please enter your questions as well. Let's make this as interactive as possible. Now, my name is Shailaja Menon and I have been a yoga practitioner and teacher for over 20 years now. I began my journey in Coimbatore with integral yoga and continued in Malaysia with my teacher Manoj Kaimal. Now, along the way, I set up my yoga studio, Mat and Beyond Yoga Studio, where I teach classes regularly. And I also, became an author, wrote a book which was published in 2018. And I also host a yoga show right now called Yoga Shakti with Anand TV, which is based in the UK. And as you can see, the yoga practice has shaped much of my life. So, Dr. Ananda Balayogi Bhavanani requires no introduction in the yoga circles, but I will still introduce him anyway. Is the director of Center for Yoga Therapy, Education and Research and professor of yoga therapy at the Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth, Pondicherry. He is chairman of the International Center for Yoga Education Research at Ananda Ashram, Pondicherry, India, and Yoganjali Natyalayam, the premier institute of yoga, Carnatic music and Bharatnatyam in Pondicherry. He is the son and successor of the internationally acclaimed yoga team Yoga Maharishi Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri Guru Maharaj and Yogacharini Ammaji Srimati Meenakshi Devi Bhavanani. Now, there are many accolades and awards that Dr. Ananda has won, but I'm really cutting short his profile so that we can get on with the conversation. But some things are definitely worth mentioning. He's a fellow of the Indian Academy of Yoga and has authored 19 DVDs, 24 books on yoga, as well as published nearly 300 papers, compilations, and abstracts on yoga and yoga research in national and international journals. And he's also an honorary advisor to the International Association of Yoga Therapists, Australasia Association of Yoga Therapists, World Yoga Foundation, and Geetananda Yoga Associations worldwide. He's also currently a member of numerous expert committees of the Ministry of Ayush, including its National Board for Promotion of Yoga Naturopathy, Scientific Advisory Committee and Standing Finance Committees of CCRYN, Technical Committee of the Yoga Certification Board, Expert Committees for the celebration of International Yoga Day and the Yoga and Diabetes Program. He's also a consultant research person for the WHO Collaborative Center for Traditional Medicine at MGNIY, New Delhi, and EC member and director publications of the Indian Yoga Association. And this is my favorite part. He's also a classical Indian vocalist, percussionist, music composer, and choreographer of the Indian classical dance. So, Dr. Ananda, we are extremely honored to have you here with us today. And let us begin with a prayer.
Namaste, Swagatam, Vanakkam, Bonjour, Buongiorno, Buonasera, Buonanotte, Huya More, Boreda, Kio, Ora, Salamat Pagi, Ayu Bovan. Such a pleasure to be with you. And let us begin with a beautiful prayer to the Guru Parampara. Tadparamparaye vidmahe Jnanalingeshwaraya dhimahi Tanno Guruh Prachodayate Om Yoga Maharishi Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Always a pleasure to be with you, Shailaja, and to be with each and every one who joins in on this show and interacts with us in such a positive manner. So over to you, Shailaja, and let's get things moving.
So the topic today is Kriya Yoga, the path of self-purification. So this is really one of the most important and most interesting aspects of the Yoga Sutras, especially for those of us who are sadhaks and very much on the path to trying to attain those higher states of consciousness. So the first question really is about the fact that Kriya Yoga, Tapas, Swadhyaya and Ishvara Pranidhana appear twice. So they do come under the Kriya Yoga as well as under the Niyamas. So I was just wondering if there was any special significance to them appearing twice. and also their importance as, in the path of self-purification.
When we talk about the term Kriya Yoga, what happens is that there are three different ways it is used. One is the utilization by Maharishi Patanjali that you have rightly stated, Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishvara, Pranidhanani, Kriya Yoga. And he gives us this very clear pathway when he starts off on the Sadhana Pada in the Yoga Sutras. Another way that the term Kriya Yoga is often utilized is that people consider that doing the Shatkarmas, the 6 cleansing practices, which are also called Shatkriyas in Hatha Yoga, many people call that as Kriya Yoga. They said, I'm doing Kriya Yoga in the morning. What they mean is they are doing the Neti, Basti, Dauti, Trataka, Kapalbhati. So you find that usage also finding its way into common parlance. The third way you find the term Kriya Yoga is in the teachings that have come from the Yogoda Satsanga, self-realization fellowship of Swami Yogananda. Swami Yogananda and his guru Yukteswar Giri, in their tradition, they have specific practices, and those practices are also called Kriya Yoga.
Yes.
And this, even in our tradition, which is parallel to that Paramahamsa Yogananda tradition, we also have the Laya Yoga Kriyas, which sometimes people refer to as Kriya Yoga. So just to understand, Kriya Yoga has multiple correlations. However, in the context of Maharishi Patanjali, he, as soon as he starts the Sadhana Pada, he tells us, he starts off, Tapas Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. That Kriya Yoga is made up of Tapa, self-discipline, Swadhyaya, introspectional self-analysis, and Ishvara Pranidhana, a capacity to give over to something higher. These three components are the components that make up Kriya Yoga, which aims at self-purification. So if you look at the Kriya Yoga, he says, why do you have Kriya Yoga? He says, Klesha, Tanu Karanartascha, and Samadhi Bhavana. So Samadhi Bhavana. So Kriya Yoga is one of the methodologies to attain the state of Samadhi, and it is a technique, a methodology to attenuate Tanu Karana, the Kleshas. So Maharishi Patanjali starts off the Sadhana Pada with this. Later on in the Sadhana Pada, around middle of Sadhana Pada, he tells us that in order to purify yourself, get rid of all the Ashuddhi, Ashuddhi Kshaye, Jnana Deepti, to develop the higher discerning wisdom of Viveka Khyati and let the light come on within us. He says, I give you the Yoga Anga, the limbs of yoga. Mistranslated as the steps of yoga, they are the limbs of yoga. In that, the first 2 Angas are Yama Niyama. In the Yama Niyama, you come even deeper, and in the Niyama, you find Saucha Santosha, Tapas Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana. So the context here is Maharishi Patanjali gives us actually 2 vital teachings of practical application in day-to-day life. People often think of Patanjali as a philosopher, as a psychologist, as a metaphysicist, as a spiritualist, but they forget he has given us 2 methodologies. The first methodology, everybody knows, Ashtanga Yoga. But they forget the second methodology, which is Kriya Yoga. And in my perspective, Kriya Yoga may be a greater contribution of Maharishi Patanjali than even Ashtanga Yoga. So why does Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishvara, Pranidhana have a place in both? Well, in my father's teachings, he says the whole of the Yama Niyama are a Kriya Yoga. He used to say it is not only Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishvara, Pranidhana, the whole of the Yama Niyama is a methodology of self-purification, right from Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha in the Yama, that are enabling us to negate the lower subhuman tendencies, and Saucha Santosha Tapaswadhyaya Ishvara Pranatrana, that help us to enhance the humane qualities. No to the negativities, yes to the positivities, thus enhancing our growth from subhuman to human, humane and divine. So you find in the niyamas Tapaswadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana, but they are part of the five. Now Maharishi Patanjali says you can practice as a part of Yama Niyama, but he said even these three have a special quality. It is like when we talk about Ashtanga Yoga, the last three limbs, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, are called Samyama.
Correct.
Now, the meaning is that though you can practice it as all the 8 limbs, these three have a special quality when put together. Similarly, you can practice each of the yama, each of the niyama, and they all are interrelated to each other. They are not watertight boxes. They have multiple interconnections. Yet, if you focus primarily on tapas, swadhyaya, ishvara, pranidhana, you can attain samadhi. And you can attenuate the most important part of taking care of getting back to who we should be or what we should be is the kleshas. So klesha tanukarana and samadhi bhavana both are by Kriya Yoga. And that is why Maharishi Patanjali has given them twice. Because he says, maybe you forgot when I wrote it the first time. So here I'm reminding you by putting it there again. And I like to remind people, short aphorisms that we find in the Yoga Sutras. Maharishi Patanjali was very succinct. He kept to the barest minimum of words to convey the teachings. And if something is repeated more than once, if something is given an exclusive sutra to it, well, it means he is saying this is highlighted in red, green, blue, and neon colors. So I think we really have to keep our mind on Kriya Yoga.
Yeah, so that's why I really wanted to flesh it out today with you, and I'm so grateful really to have the opportunity to do that. So just want to say hi to everybody here. Thank you all for tuning in. Wonderful to see you. Namaste to all of you. And of course, wonderful to see Ignatius uncle here from the UK, and always wonderful to see Kaustub's comments along the way. So we'll just go on with the questions now. So tapas, like there are so many definitions, right? If you see different books, they have many definitions of tapas. So I've heard you talk about tapas and, in terms of discipline. So I was just wondering if you could just elaborate on that and, the importance of tapas in this whole, path as sadhakas.
Yeah. You see, when we talk about tapa, often the immediate image that comes to everybody's mind is of some long-haired and long-bearded sannyasi in the high Himalayas, standing on one leg with his hands stretched up into Anjali Mudra and not coming out of it. Somebody who stops eating and becomes as thin as bones. This is the type of image, and hence so many people translated it as austerity, penance, and some people even went to the extent of calling it self-hate. So that this is the modern scholars in yoga, the yogidiots, who they want to reinvent yoga and present it in such unpalatable terms. So tapa becomes this self-hate because of which you do bad things to yourself. Self-harm, what we call sadomasochistic tendencies, where you harm yourself. They think that tapas is harming yourself. And many cultures had that. People would do weird things, and they would do it for spiritual reasons, society reasons, and they felt that they were doing this penance to overcome guilt, overcome negative karma. So I have done some papa, I have to overcome it, what we call parikara. So I will go and roll around the temple 5 times and do that anga pradashrana. I will put a spear through my tongue. I will poke my eyes. I will poke my nose. All this became tapas. in their eyes. But if you look at tapa, tapa actually means self-effort, which is of the nature of burning away that which is not to be. So, for example, when you take a diamond, what is a diamond? A diamond is compressed carbon. So carbon which is heavily compressed under the pressure, under the friction, under the tension, the high temperature, the carbon gets transformed into a diamond. If it doesn't have that, it stays as charcoal. So you have the charcoal, which is also carbon. You have the graphite, which is also carbon. And you have the diamond, which is carbon. Depending on the level of pressure accepted, self-effort, testing, that carbon becomes a diamond. So that diamond, in order to become the diamond, has to go through a process of purification, effort, and cleaning away all that it is not. Similarly, we human beings are born potentially divine. We are divine. We are Ishvara with klesha and karma. This is actually who we are. So klesha and karma has to be burnt away for us to once again be Ishvara. So if you want to burn it away, you need a process. It is like, you take anything you want to purify, any metal, anything. And the cutter, you have to use a cutter to cut it into shape. The process of cutting it into shape, the process of molding it into shape, the process of, your beautiful golden jewelry. You have a piece of gold, and then that goldsmith has to put it in the fire, beat it and all, and then finally, presto, magic, you have this beautiful 18-karat gold necklace. It doesn't just happen without somebody's effort. If you are to be the diamond you are to be, if you are to manifest the divinity that is potentially inherent in each and every soul, we need to make the effort. That effort is what tapas is all about. And this is why Maharishi Patanjali gives us a clue. He says, Ayendriya Siddhihi. What happens is that through tapa, your kaya, your body, and your indriyas, your sensory apparatus, become the perfect tools they are to be. So how do you create a body that is fit to be the house of the divine? How do you create a sensory apparatus that can perceive the higher sensations of the universal divinity? Tapa is the means for that to happen. So it is very far from self-hate, sadomasochism, penance and austerity, and doing penance to get something. All our asuras, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, all of them would do a lot of, they called it tapa.
Penance.
But it is not really tapa. They were making effort for the sake of getting a boon so that the ego can rule over the universe. So that is not what tapa is. Maharishi Patanjali's version of tapa is self-discipline. When you do what you need to do to become who you need to be, doing the right thing to be the right person. Self-purification, cutting away. It is like the rock, cutting away all that is not the statue so that the statue can emerge from the rock. That is what tapa is all about.
And how about the element of discipline? Like, why would you define it as discipline? Where does that come in?
Discipline is the toughest thing for us human beings. Even during the COVID pandemic, how many are washing their hands regularly? How many are maintaining social distancing? How many are wearing the face mask in public? You just look at the world and you see. Indiscipline is inherent in the modern featherless bipeds. The human being is featherless biped, basically chicken without feather. That is what the Greek philosophers called us, featherless bipeds with flat nails and thick skulls. Seriously, I tell you, we lack self-discipline. You look at everybody's New Year resolutions. It ends on January 2. And then it will be brought out on December 31. Everybody says, Dr. Ananda, we will start yoga with you. You never hear from them again. From tomorrow, I'm going to do. That is why my father said, no tomorrow. He said, do it now. Do it now. D-I-N. And he used to go, din, 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 din. He used to din it into us, do it now. Well, he was way ahead of the time when Nike said, just do it.
Just do it.
He was saying, do it now. Because now is where you can do something. And discipline starts in the now. Discipline doesn't start yesterday. Discipline doesn't start tomorrow. Discipline is in the now, where you make a mindful decision. Even if it is tough, I will do it. And I was talking to Ammaji yesterday before I went to work. And as usual, in the morning before I go to work, I go to her, offer her morning chocolate. I call her my goddess of chocolate. So her Naivedyam is a small Cadbury milk chocolate in the morning. And I said, let's have a good day. And Ammaji said, let's make a good day. That's a big difference. The common attitude is, let's have a good day. So somebody will make sure we have a good day. And Ammaji's response, let's make a good day. We are to take responsibility for our body, our mind, our emotions, our words, our actions. And that is where Tapa comes in as a means of purifying all that needs to be removed. All that which needs to be removed is cleaved away. I was looking for that word. It's cleaved away by Tapa, so that what is required will be there. And self-discipline is the key. Because for me, yoga is all about self-discipline. Even the first verse of the Yoga Sutra, Atha Yoga Anushasanam, tells us that in the present moment, we begin the discipline of yoga. Yoga is a discipline of the self, which has to be practiced in the moment by complete mindfulness. Now, the word mindfulness has been hijacked by the whole industry in the West, who have created an industry of mindfulness, forgetting that the original source of mindfulness is our ancient teachings, such as Maharishi Patanjali.
Okay. Very nice. Thank you so much for that. So, I was also, sometimes I tell my students also, when I was growing up, discipline was such a bad word and something that you rebelled against and hated. But as you grow older, you realize that actually without discipline, nothing gets done. And if you want to achieve anything in any aspect of your life, like discipline is so important. So then when we're talking about, disciplining our own self, I think, towards all these higher states of consciousness, then it becomes like we can't do without it.
So
And
true. So true. I would like to just add here.
Our own self, I think, towards all these higher states of consciousness, then it becomes.
I just wanted to add something here. With Ammaji, every evening I spend 45 minutes singing for her. And one of the commonest things I tell her is, thank you for making me do the right thing when I was a kid. Because as a kid, I wanted to climb trees, I wanted to run around and, just waste time. And she and my father made sure I went to my music class. They made sure I practiced. They made sure I had a structure in which the discipline was there that has enabled me today to be who I am. And this is why I thank her for giving me that structure of discipline. Because as you so rightly said, as a kid, discipline is a bad word. It's one of those words you don't want to listen to.
Yeah.
Later on, you're so happy that there's been some discipline in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was just going to ask you if you could just, how do we inculcate like this tapas in our lives in terms of discipline, and what practices must we undertake? So maybe some examples in terms of maybe what you practice or just what you have observed, over so many people and, so many years.
No, I think one of the keys here is Ammaji used to always tell us about the 3 R's: repetition, rhythm, and regularity. It is so important. Repetition, rhythm, and regularity. And these are the essentials of self-discipline. Repetition. Because what we think is, I did it once, why do I need to do it again? And so beautifully, we learn that if you just strike a hammer on the nail once, nothing will happen. If you just dig 1 foot, you're not going to get water. You have to keep on repeating the process to hit gold, as they say. You have to keep on repeating the process. This is part of it. So this attitude that says, I attended a class once, why do I need to do it again? Yeah, I read about the Yama Niyama, now why do I need to go back to it? In lesson 1, Swamiji talks of sectional breathing, Vibhaga Pranayama. Now I'm in lesson 43. Why do I need to know that? We have a tendency to think that we don't need to repeat. I think one of the key aspects of self-discipline is repetition. The second one is bringing a rhythm. Every morning I get up, I come to our shrine, and I perform an arati at 6 o'clock in the morning. This is a rhythm, this is a repetition that then gives me a certain discipline to start the day as it meant to be started. Now, if I say today I will do it, but tomorrow I'll feel like how I feel I'll do it, and day after I may or may not do it, which is how people fall into indiscipline. That is the tamasika guna. So you have to move from tamasika to rajasika by creating a structure. I think discipline requires a structure, which is the responsibility of the parents, responsibility of the teachers, responsibility of society, is to give us a structure in which discipline can exist. This is why we have the signal, the traffic signals, because if there were no signals, imagine how people would drive in India. Despite the signals, they don't drive. Red is going on and they go through. That's a different issue. You need a structure. You need a repetition, you need a rhythm, and you need that regularity to go back again and again and again. And what I have found in my life is, what I practiced when I was 10 years old, the practice of the same thing when I was 20, 30, 40, and now as I'm getting close to 50, there is a big leap, quantum leap of consciousness in the same thing. And this is why our great thinkers of the past have told us, you can never step into the same river twice.
So true.
Because what people say is, last month you taught us pranayama, why do we need to do it this month? Why do you need to do it this month? You need to do it this month so that it becomes part of your self-growth process. Because what we tend to think is, it's like school kids. What they learned in 8th standard, they forget when they come to 9th. What they learned in 9th, they forget when they come to 10th. And by the time they come to college, they have forgotten everything they learned in that 12 years of schooling. And I say, no, you are supposed to go through it again and again. The concept you have to dwell on that concept again and again. You have to dwell on the pranayama. You have to dwell on the Surya Namaskar. You have to dwell on the asana. Each asana, the same Dhanur asana, you can do it every day of your life and it will not be the same. Ammaji used to say she must have done 1,000,000 Surya Namaskars in her yoga life. And she said, not once has it been the same. Because you're doing the same thing, but you are growing in consciousness. So discipline doesn't mean doing the same thing in a mundane, tamasic manner. Discipline means doing the same thing, but as you hit that same point again and again, you are going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into that experience, and the universality of that practice is opening up to you. The same Omkar, Om, what it is when you start it, and as you practice it each time, when you chant it, what does it become and how does it connect you to the cosmos? That is where repetition, regularity, rhythm, and structure. Amma used to always remind us, instruction has to have a structure. Instruction, even the word instruction means in a structure. So you have to create a structure in which the instruction can happen. And this is why discipline is an essential component of structure And how do you bring it into your life? By continuously coming back to where you are. Because the mind is like a monkey. The mind is like a wild animal that wants to run every place. And you keep on pulling it back. You say, no issue, come back here. Come back, come back, come back, come back. And then suddenly you are settled in yourself and you start to go on that inner journey that is more amazing than any fancy world trip you can go on. The inner journey is a million times more joyful.
Yeah, so I've just been dwelling on this because it's such an important concept. And, when you were talking about, doing the same thing over again, I would also tell my students, right, when in any class, right, asana class, Adho Mukha Svanasana is like, we do it like so many times in one class. But I always say, like, if we can be present to it, like each time we go into it is actually a different experience, because the first time we do it the body is a bit tight, the second time we do it maybe it's open a little bit more. There's so many nuances to that position, but all of that comes to us only if we can be present, only if that mind can be there to be able to discern these nuances. So it's so true what you say, the mind will go away, but the practice is really to keep coming back and to keep seeing every repetition with fresh eyes. And then we really see how nothing is really the same. And that's so beautiful what you say, that you can never step into the same waters twice. It's so true. So what we were talking about earlier also, Ignatius uncle, he also says that hammer shatters glass but forges steel. Michelangelo made an elephant out of a log of wood by getting rid. So which is so true, right? We express our divinity by releasing whatever is not us, in terms of all the I think I'll bring in the kleshas here, and all those negativities by the raga and dvesha and all of that which gets churned within us. So that is really the practice. And nice. There's a question here from Lakshmiti, my cousin from Singapore. So, how do discipline and fluidity coexist?
How do discipline and fluidity coexist? Because both of them are part and parcel of the same wholesome experience. Because we tend to think that discipline is a lack of fluidity and that fluidity is a transcendence of discipline. This is where I love our South Indian music, Carnatic music. The discipline is to keep within the notes. Sa re ga pa da sa sa da va ga sa. Those are the notes. Okay. Now that is the structure. That is the discipline. I don't go and go ni. I cannot do a ni. Sa re ga ba da sa da pa ga ba da sa da va ga ba da pa da ga da pa sa da. What I'm doing is within the structure, within that discipline, I am maintaining a discipline and exploring the fluidity. You are exploring the fluidity within the discipline structure. So people tend to think of them as the opposites. They are not the opposites. They are part of the same wholesome Purnam experience. So say I'm singing Hamsa Dwani. Sa re ga ba ni sa sa ni ba ga re sa ni ba ga re sa. Now there cannot be a ma and there cannot be a da. So the discipline is no ma, no da. That is the discipline. The creativity is, instead of just going sa re ga ba ni sa sa ni ba ga re sa sa re ga ba ni sa sa ni ba ga re sa. That's not discipline. Discipline with fluidity. Sa 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 ni sa re sa 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 ni sa ga re sa ni ba ga re pa ga ni pa sa ni re sa. Ga ba ga re sa ni ba ga re sa sa re ga ba ni ni sa sa ni ba ba ga ni ba ba ga re ga ba ni sa ga re sa ni ba ga sa ni ba ga re. This is the fluidity, but I'm having the discipline that I will not sing the ma and the da, because the structure, the discipline is the raga. Similarly, in our yoga sadhana, there is the structure within which you have the fluidity. Life is a structure in which you have the fluidity. It is like, people think freedom is the absence of responsibility. Correct. But with freedom comes responsibility. They are part of the same wholesome experience. I hope this answers that question.
Yeah, so I saw Balaji here, so I think it's his birthday today. So I just want to wish Balaji a very happy birthday, Balaji, and wonderful that you actually gracing this conversation with your presence on such an important day for you. So
He is
just saying
everything.
hello. Yeah, I know he's somebody who's very close to you. So yeah, so just noting that. And yeah, just saying hello to so many of my students here, my aunts here. There's Viji, Usha, and Uma, and so many people. Neeru's there. I think Neeru's coming from Canada. So many of you, Misa from
I see
Japan.
Prakash there, and Prakash Kandaswamy, he will understand it as someone who plays the rhythm. The same thing, you have the 8 beats. The tala is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, within that 1, 2, 3, 4, how much you can do? You have that is the structure. Instead, that you do so many things. How many intricate patterns can come into it's also the 8. Taka 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 ta. It is also 8. Takita 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 takademi takita 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 takademi. It's also the 8. So the 8 is the discipline. What you do within it. You have been given life from the beginning, the first breath of life to the last breath of life. You have been given a structure. You have the discipline to be within it. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, and the Chaturashramas, Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa. That is the discipline. Within that, how can you make your life a magical one? How can you make your life a mega hit? Well, that's up to our own fluidity, our own creativity.
Yeah, well, I think Prakash, you have to come to every conversation because you bring out the music in Dr. Ananda. I think two musicians resonate with each other. So wonderful to have Prakash here as well, and wonderful to have Dr. Ananda respond so beautifully to his presence. Anyway, so let's move on. So that's a lot about tapas because it's so important, and it's really all these are the core practices without which none of us can evolve in any field, let alone yoga. So, what is swadhyaya to you, and how do we apply that in our lives?
I define Swadhyaya as self-reflection and introspectional self-analysis. So here the capacity is that normally we are turning our senses externally. Normally we want to know everything about everybody else. That is why you have dozens of 24-hour news channels. We want to know everything about everybody else. We don't want to know anything about ourselves. Because we are caught in an escapist mindset. Swadhyaya is turning the camera on yourself. That is why I say Swadhyaya is the yogic selfie. You turn the camera on yourself. You start to look at yourself. Now, when you look at yourself, initially you are like, oh my God, I look so ugly. This is how we think of it. When I listen to my own voice singing, I'm like, seriously, this sounds more like noise than music. This is how we perceive ourselves. We are often very harsh on ourselves. And then the other extreme where we think, everything we are is great. You have both the extremes of the ego. One ego which says, I am the perfect one, and the other says that I am the most imperfect one. Both are ego, and both are dangerous. Now, if you look at Swadhyaya, it is the capacity to look at oneself, self-reflection, and again, Ammaji. That's why she's a living Siddha. Ammaji has given us the key on how to do it. She says, look at yourself, reflect on yourself without identification, condemnation, or justification. So the moment you look at yourself, you say, this is me, and then your ego comes in, the asmita comes in, the ahankara comes in, and you lose all perspective. This is why Patanjali gives us vairagya, objectivity, the objectivity by non-attachment. You take a step back to look at yourself as if you are looking at somebody else. It is called metacognition. Modern science uses the term metacognition for vairagya. So vairagya is an essential component of swadhyaya. So you are looking at yourself without saying, this is me. Because the moment you say, this is me, you lose perspective. So watch yourself without identification. Second, once you watch, you say, oh my God, this is so bad, that is so bad, this is so bad, without condemnation. So the first is, watch yourself, introspect about yourself without identification, without condemnation, and the third one, without justification. I am like this because of my father. I am like this because of my mother. I am like this because of my genes. I am like this because of the government. I am like this because of society. I am like this. I am like this because of. You know what? We have to stop giving justification. So Swadhyaya is introspectional self-analysis. It is the capacity for self-reflection without identification, condemnation, or justification. And what does Maharishi Patanjali say? He says, when you establish yourself in Swadhyaya, when Swadhyaya becomes your natural state of existence, you will have a connection with ishta devata. He says, Swadhyayat ishta devata samprayoga. So everybody runs around saying, oh, if I do Swadhyaya, I will have a darshan of the God I like. Ishta devata, we define it as the God that you like. For example, in my case, Dakshinamurti Shiva is my ishta devata. So, if I do Swadhyaya, Dakshinamurti Shiva will come and sit in front of me and we'll have coffee together. And chai pe charcha with Dakshinamurti Shiva. No. What it means, what is that ishta devata? Ishta devata means your own divinity. Your own divinity. So each one of us is the divine in human form. Nara Narayana. Okay, we are the divine in human form. I said we are Ishvara with Klesha and Karma. You eradicate Klesha Karma, we are once again Ishvara. So what we need to understand is that divinity is within us. We are divine, but we don't know it. So through Swadhyaya, you start to establish a connection and reconnect with your inherent divinity. That is what is meant. Not that suddenly one of the gods will descend and sit in front of you in your office if you do Swadhyaya. But we have translated it that way. We have said, oh yes, you will have a darshan of your ishta devata. No, that is a very frivolous kindergarten way to understand it. Through Swadhyaya, you will establish a rapport with your inherent divinity. Because you start to understand who you are. You ask yourself that question, Ko Ham. You ask that question of Ramana Maharishi, Nan Yar. And what does Ramana say? In order to understand Nan Yar, Summa Ir. People say Summa Ir means be quiet. I say no, it means be still. Summa Ir means just be. So Ramana's message is be still, be quiet, just be. And in that moment, you connect with your inherent divinity and your divinity will start to shine bright. That is what Swadhyaya is. Now, many people think Swadhyaya is reading religious books. And I have so many friends who say, oh yes, in our college, we have a Swadhyaya period where we go to the library and read books. I'm like, reading a book. See, a book can be a good guide. My research mentor, Madan Mohan sir, used to famously say, books are for the obedience of fools and guidance of the wise. So the book, the fool obeys the book, the wise is guided by the book. So when you read the scriptures, it is not to memorize it. Oh, I have memorized all 700 verses in the Bhagavad Gita, I have memorized 196 verses in Yoga Sutra. I find people, I know the whole Yoga Sutra, they say. I'm like, wow, great. I don't know anything about the Yoga Sutra. Because, it is such a vast ocean. You are standing on the shore. You realize how puny you are. Says Abhaya. What you know is this. What you don't know is that. And suddenly you're like, wow. And people come to me and they say, I know everything about Yoga Sutra. I'm like, seriously? And they don't even know what is the first verse, let alone know it. But they think they know it. This is the ego playing a trick. So in Swadhyaya, it is very important to understand, do read the scriptures. But when you read the scripture, Put yourself into that position. When Krishna tells Arjuna, Tasmad yogi bhava Arjunaha, he is not just telling Arjuna be a yogi, he is telling each and every one of us be a yogi. So when you read it, you should be able to understand that how it applies in you, in your life. And when you start to imbibe it, it becomes Swadhyaya. Memorizing the scripture is not Swadhyaya. Memorization is a skill which is at a very, very lower level of intelligence. What is most important is, do you apply it in your thought, word, and deed? And then Swadhyaya, Swa Adhyaya, the chapter of who you are. Adhyaya is a chapter. You are starting to understand your own book, the book of the self, not somebody else's book. We always want to read somebody else's book and write their answers. That is why Lord Krishna says, Swadharma. Live your dharma, read your book, and become the version of you that you are to be, and manifest that divinity that is inherent in each and every one of us.
I think that is so beautiful. And so to the point where, we are actually reminded again and again that our life is about us and working on us. So, you said many wonderful things, but I think what I really like and what is going to stay with me is about how Swadhyaya is the yogic selfie. About how we train it on ourselves and, really look deeply within ourselves. And that is so true. And I have Prakash saying also that, he identifies with that whole aspect of not condemning ourselves. And, I think that is so true. We all do it at so many different levels. Especially when we look at ourselves in the mirror, I think we have many things that we wish we could change. And it's always that which comes, right? Too fat, too thin, too tall, too short, right? So I think it's so true what Ammaji says about really learning to look at ourselves through that eyes of that witness, where we don't identify and we don't justify and we don't condemn either. So many beautiful things have come out in this Swadhyaya practice, and I'm sure all the listeners are going to take back something very important that resonates with them. So from there, moving on to Ishvara Pranidhana, which again is a very interesting concept, and also so many different, ways of exploring that. So I really wanted to hear, your view of it, because you hear, I mean, even the concept of surrender is, explored so widely by so many different philosophies as well. So I just wanted to ask you about what is your definition of Ishvara Pranidhana. And I think we explored a little bit of this in Bhakti Yoga also. I think you talked about how that would be Ishvara Pranidhana here.
Yes.
And so I'm asking you the very same question also. I think I asked you whether this can be inculcated, because it's such an interesting thing. Like, what happens if you don't have it? Right? So can you, cultivate this Ishvara Pranidhana kind of attitude, or is it something you're born with? So first, the definition.
Pranidhana, yeah. Ishvara Pranidhana is the capacity to acknowledge there is something bigger than us. So the first part of Ishvara Pranidhana is to acknowledge that we are not the end-all, be-all of the universe. So the first capacity that one needs to work on for Ishvara Pranidhana is, and that is why Swadhyaya has come before it, so that you understand the context of who you are, your connection, and you realize there is this vast universe, nature, energy, the divine. There is something much more grand than us, and a capacity to offer our gratitude, our respect, our acknowledgement to that force that is sustaining and nourishing us. We are nourished by that force. We are sustained by that force. That force is giving us an opportunity to grow as a human being. And as a result, we have the attitude of giving over to that force and saying, "Thy will be done." And this is why the moment where Jesus the Christ was nailed up on the cross, and he uses the term, "Thy will be done." May your will be done. It is not my will. And the great Tamil saints have sung Avan arulale avanthal vanangi. Even to surrender to the lotus feet of the divine, we need the grace of the divine. We think, oh, I am coming and doing puja to you, and so God should be grateful to us. I am breaking 100 coconuts, so you should be grateful for me. Who has grown those coconuts? Who has enabled you to be born, have a life, and make money to buy the coconuts? Who has given you the capacity to think that you want to break the coconuts? No, I am breaking the coconut. What a height of ego. And that is where Ishvara Pranidhana is, where we start to realize that we owe life something. We have been given the gift of life. We have been given this opportunity to grow as a human being and transcend our humaneness into the divinity. And we say thank you. So Ishvara Pranidhana is an expression of gratitude to the cosmos for this opportunity that we have. And through Ishvara Pranidhana, you attenuate the survival instinct that says, I must survive at any cost. So one of the kleshas is abhinivesha, which is survival. And Ishvara Pranidhana is the antidote to it. Because you say, it is not about my survival, it is about thy will be done. I give over. And it was very interesting the other day when I was talking to Ammaji. We have beautiful conversations, and she's taught me more in the past year than in my 48 years of life before that. And we were talking, and I was telling her, I said, there are so many things. I find myself completely lost. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to proceed. I'm at a loss. I'm in that Arjuna Vishada state. So she becomes my Krishna, giving me the Upadesha in those states. And she said, give up. And I'm like, Amma, you said give up? Did you really say give up? Because, she's not the type of person to say give up, okay? I said, did you say give up? Do you realize what that means? And she said, yes, give up and give over. So give up and give over. And it was a moment of Zen through Amma. Ammaji gave me that moment of Zen. Give up and give over. And this is where you let go of the tiny ego that is holding us. It's like you let go of that which is holding you in bondage, and you are flying into freedom at that moment. Ishvara Pranidhana is letting go of that which is binding us. It is like if you're standing on earth all the time saying, I am going to stand here, you will never leap high. You have to let go of earth and make that leap of faith, as done by those amazing Paralympians. I was watching the high jumpers in the Paralympics. What amazing examples of the great human spirit. And they take off from the ground and they are just flying. The long jumpers, as they take off and they just fly. The pole vaulters, as they take off and they just fly. What a beautiful moment where you have let go and you have become free. You let go of all the attachments. You let go of this thing that I will do it. And this is why that flow, tapa, is a lot of I am doing. I am making the effort. I am being disciplined. Swadhyaya is your GPS. Is your effort and discipline in the right direction? So you have made the effort. You have checked whether you are on the correct path. And then you let go. So it's like the runner. The runner is coming up to that board. They are making sure they know where the board is. Where is the takeoff point so that you don't foul your attempt. And then at the right moment, they take off. And Ishvara Pranidhana. Tapa is running the run-up. Swadhyaya is knowing where to take off. And Ishvara Pranidhana is the leap of faith. And you have that freedom where suddenly you are just flying high. You are flying with freedom. And Ishvara Pranidhana, Maharishi Patanjali says, when you attain the state of Ishvara Pranidhana, what happens? Samadhi Siddhihi. Through just Ishvara Pranidhana, you can go into the state of Samadhi. So on one side you have Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, 7, and then Samadhi. Kriya Yoga is Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana, also Samadhi. And then he says the shortest of the shortcuts, Ishvara Pranidhana. Samadhi Siddhihi Ishvara Pranidhana. Through Ishvara Pranidhana. Now, what is this Ishvara? Because many of the yoga teachers have been also very religious, they use the word God. And then it becomes Shiva, Vishnu, whatever, Krishna, depending on their likes and dislikes. I like to say Ishvara is the consciousness. Ultimately, it is the consciousness that percolates the whole cosmos. That's all. You call it whatever you want. It is Anama, Anami, without name. It is Arupa, without form. It is Akala, timeless. Arupa, Akala, and Anami. And you cannot characterize it because it is Nirguna. But what do we want to say? We want to say, oh, Ishvara means Shiva, so then Adi Shiva and you all prostrate to him. Or it is Mahavishnu and you prostrate to him. And what has happened is, we have brought Ishvara into a form. And Maharishi Patanjali, to me, is an agnostic. He is not religious, he is agnostic. I often say he is close to being an atheist also. But for him, it is not God. We may call it God. What he is talking about is the universe, nature, energy, consciousness, and that higher. And the capacity to say, I have done my best. Tapa is doing your best. Swadhyaya is knowing whether you have done your best. And Ishvara Pranidhana is leaving the rest. So do your best, leave the rest. That is the combination. And the same message is what the Bhagavad Gita gives us. Bhagavad Gita, the whole Bhagavad Gita can be summarized by saying, do your best, leave the rest. The same Kriya Yoga, Tapa, do your best, Swadhyaya, check whether you have done your best, and when to let go. You have to know the exact point. You pull that arrow, the arrow is pulled back. Archery. You pull the arrow back. You have to know whether you pulled it correctly, and you have to know the exact point to let go, and then you let go. Pulling back, the effort, Tapa. Knowing when to let go, Swadhyaya. Letting go, Ishvara Pranidhana. And bang, you hit the target. The second
Very nice.
Second part of your question. Are we born with it or do we develop it? I don't think too many people are born with it. I don't think too many people are born with it because there is too much of karma and klesha with us. So I believe that Ishvara Pranidhana, just as I have talked about Kritagnyata, gratitude, I believe that Ishvara Pranidhana is an act of choice. Letting go is an act of choice. And giving over is an act of choice. And this act of choice transcends the survival instinct. So I believe it is a cultivated attitude. Ishvara Pranidhana, I believe, has to be cultivated through Tapa and Swadhyaya. Through Tapa and Swadhyaya, you will automatically start to realize your limitations. It is like the wise person knows the limitations very, very well. The fool thinks they have no limitations. So the same thing here. The more you grow in spirit, the more your sadhana becomes every moment sadhana, the more you start to understand your limitations and you realize the grace of the divine, the grace of nature, the grace of the universe, the grace of God. You call it whatever you want. I say the template is the same. The grace of fill in the blank with whatever is your path. And this is what Bhakti Yoga is also giving us. That capacity to give over. Sharanagati. That Sharanagati and Ishvara Pranidhana. What a beautiful attitude where you realize having done our best. It's like the rocket going up. The rocket thrust goes up and there's a moment where then it just goes into space and it's in the orbit. There's that beautiful moment, it's just in the orbit. But initially you need that rocket thrust. That rocket thrust is the tapa, the fire. Swadhyaya is letting go of all that is not you. It's been burnt off. And finally, the you can be in circulation, can be in orbit, where you need to be, shining bright in the starry night. Shining bright in the starry night.
The words are flowing. I really liked, I'm just bringing it up because I think it's relevant here also in your gratitude talk. You talked about, that was something that I had never thought about how, in order to even have that attitude of gratitude, you need a certain level of consciousness to have that. And I think the same thing applies here as well. And
So true.
I think in the beginning, our egos are quite big and we're not really conscious of anything. But as our consciousness gets more deepens and we get more refined in the process, I think we're able to, like you say, understand how much of grace there is in every moment. And I think it's like you need a certain level of consciousness to be able to even connect to all of these principles like Ishvara Pranidhana, Sharanagati, I think Kritagnyata, all
So
of them.
true. It is a growth in consciousness. And that's what yoga is. Yoga is transformation for the sake of transcendence. So the transformation leading us into that state of transcendence. What a beautiful way to understand it. And you are growing every moment. When we are a small kid, we think everybody exists just to serve us. The kid thinks my mother just is there, so whenever I feel hungry, I get milk. My father is there whenever I need to, carry me around on a stroll. And then, like that, you grow up thinking, everybody is there just for you. And as you grow in consciousness, you start to realize you are there to serve everybody. Initially, you think everybody is there to serve you, and you grow from that ultimately into the attitude of seva. That is why gratitude, kritagnyata, gives us the attitude of seva, and Ishvara Pranidhana, Bhakti Yoga, is all based on seva. It's an attitude of serving, not because somebody is higher than you. This is where, again, these modern yoga scholars have got it wrong. They think the Shishya did seva because the Guru had power hierarchy. They say Guru Shishya is a power hierarchy. No, no, no. The Shishya was doing seva because of they had cultivated gratitude, and an expression of the gratitude was seva. You do seva, Manushya seva for humanity. How many medical professionals, how many professionals in IT are keeping the world going right now, despite all the struggle. If we can connect today, how many IT professionals are enabling that you and I can connect today and so many can join in here? They are doing a seva. You can say they're getting paid for it. That is the second perspective. They are serving humanity by keeping us connected in this time where we are all disconnected. The medical health professionals are keeping us safe despite our efforts to kill ourselves. It's just weird. People are like the lemmings running to the edge of the cliff to jump off. And despite that, you have all these medical healthcare professionals trying to save lives in the ICUs. For what? Because they want to serve. You have people out there cleaning the street. Imagine the streets are not cleaned, how bad it would be. People out there serving us by doing that. Teachers are teaching online. They didn't know what it is to teach online. They have learned how to teach online. So many people are serving humanity right now. That is the service. And that comes out of a sense. When that can be harnessed, we all come together. Because seva brings us together. Ishvara Pranidhana brings us together. Bhakti Yoga brings us together. Because as you grow in Tapa, there's a lot of doing. But in Ishvara Pranidhana, it is being. You are moving from doing to being. And that is the journey of Kriya Yoga, moving from doing to being. And what a beautiful journey that Maharishi Patanjali has given us. Such a beautiful journey.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ananda, for really, delving into each of these and making it so relatable. I think that's really something that every person is going to go back with a deeper understanding of each of these concepts. And what I truly appreciate is also the way that you, sometimes we tend to look at these as very separate concepts, like tapas is separate, swadhyaya is separate. But I love the way that you blend everything together and link everything together and show us how they actually link eventually into Ishvara Pranidhana and how that whole process of doing to being happens. And I think that is something that is so, deep and such a great understanding of these concepts. to see the link between all of them. And as I think Trupti says, feel like listening to him nonstop. Yeah, so I think that's something that is going to be echoed by everybody, and I certainly feel like that too. But all good things have to come to an end, and it's already an hour since we started this conversation. So Dr. Ananda has another. He's starting a very precious session with his daughter Divya. So I have to let him go for that, and I'm going to wind up here. So I'm going to ask Dr. Ananda to, give us a bhajan or give us a song or give us something to end the session with.
I've talked a lot about Abhaya because Abhaya, for me, embodies the best of humanity. And she's such a poetess par excellence and Tamil Mudati Abhay. And so I composed a song many years ago about her and her teachings as a gratitude, expression of gratitude to her. கற்றது கைமண்ணளவு கல்லாதது உலகளவு, கற்றது கைமண்ணளவு கல்லாதது உலகளவு, களங்கரை விளக்கமாய் வாழ்ந்த தமிழ் மூதாட்டி, களங்கரை விளக்கமாய் வாழ்ந்த தமிழ் மூதாட்டி, கற்றது கைமண்ணளவு கல்லாதது உலகளவு, உலகளவு அறஞ்செய்ய விரும்பு அறஞ்செய்ய விரும்பு அறம் செய்ய விரும்பு என்று தொடங்கும் ஆத்தி சூடி மழலை செல்வங்களுக்காக தந்த அவ்வை பாட்டி, அறஞ்செய்ய விரும்பு என்று தொடங்கும் ஆத்தி சூடி மழலை செல்வங்களுக்காக தந்த அவ்வை பாட்டி, கற்றது கைமண்ணளவு கல்லாதது உலகளவு, உலகளவு அரிது அரிது மானிடராய் பிறத்தல், அரிது அரிது மானிடராய் பிறத்தல், அதனினும் மிக அரிது தானமும் தவம் செய்தல், அரிது அரிது மானிடராய் பிறத்தல், அதனினும் மிக அரிது தானமும் தவம் செய்தல், பெரிது பெரிது அந்த புவனோம் பெரிது, பெரிது பெரிது அந்த புவனோம் பெரிது, அதனினும் மிக பெரிது திரு தொண்டர் திருநாமம், அதனினும் மிக பெரிது திரு தொண்டர் திருநாமம், கற்றது கைமண்ணளவு கல்லாதது உலகளவு, உலகளவு தாயை சிறந்ததொரு கோயிலும் இல்லை, தாயை சிறந்ததொரு கோயிலும் இல்லை, தந்தை சொல் மிக்க ஒரு மந்திரம் இல்லை, தாயை சிறந்ததொரு கோயிலும் இல்லை, தந்தை சொல் மிக்க ஒரு மந்திரம் இல்லை, தாய் தமிழ் பெருமையை வளர்த்த, தாய் தமிழ் பெருமையை வளர்த்த நிந்தன் தாளினை பணிந்தேன் அருள்வாயம்மா, தாய் தமிழ் பெருமையை வளர்த்த நிந்தன் தாளினை பணிந்தேன் அருள்வாயம்மா, தாளினை பணிந்தேன் அருள்வாயம்மா, கற்றது கைமண்ணளவு கல்லாதது உலகளவு, கலங்கரை விளக்கமாய் வாழ்ந்த தமிழ் மூதாட்டி, கற்றது கைமண்ணளவு கல்லாதது உலகளவு, உலகளவு. வாழ்க 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 வாழ்கவே தமிழ் மூதாட்டி அவ்வை, வாழ்கவே 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 தமிழ் மூதாட்டி அவ்வை, வாழ்கவே 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 தமிழ் மூதாட்டி அவ்வை, வாழ்கவே தமிழ் மூதாட்டி அவ்வை, வாழ்கவே.
So, Dr. Ananda, I have many favorites, but this certainly ranks as one of my, on top of the list. And I think you sang this, I think, on the Kritagnata, at least some lines of this you had sung. And I remember you talking about the lines of, how tapa and I think the ability to give dana, I think, are
Yes,
what
so true.
makes us, evolve as in human consciousness, which
So
again requires that growth in human consciousness to be able to do all of this. So yes, the conversation has to end. And those of you who would like to continue listening to Dr. Ananda, he has a scintillating Saturday every Saturday morning at 7:15 a.m. India, doctor. Is that correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
7:15 a.m. Indian time.
Yeah, yeah. So please look out for that. You can look for the poster on his Facebook page, and please continue following. And just through all of these conversations, we grow. So thank you so much, Dr. Ananda. He's extremely busy, so I'm always very grateful that he takes the time to share it with us. Thank you
Such
so
a
much.
pleasure. Such a pleasure. Dhanyavadaha. Nandri Vanakkam.
And thank you, all of you, too.